1, 2, 1, 2. Dan Ryder, Super Bowl, February 11, 2024. Glad to have you with us. How was that for a short field landing? That's a guy that forgot to check what he was reaching for after he landed. He reached for his flap handle, but instead got his gear handle. Dan Ryder, Probable Cause, glad to have you with us Sunday night. I know it's late. You are up way past your bedtime. How was that for a Super Bowl game? I got no idea how it came out because as of the shooting right now, game hasn't even been played yet. But this thing got pushed back because of the Super Bowl schedule and because of the Gwen Shamblin, Michael Shamblin video interview from Phil in Nashville, Tennessee that was going to play right after that. So I appreciate you hanging in. I've got a whole bunch of stuff I'm going to give it to you. We've actually done pretty good in January and February so far. I'll give you those graphics on the screen in just a minute, but I know that you're here to hear more about 6-6 Bravo Kilo, the Nashville Remnant Fellowship crash. Some of you are not interested in that, and I appreciate that. I'm going to save that information for the very, very end. Kind of controversial. If you don't want to stay to the end, that's totally fine. I'm going to put the stuff. I'll try to get this video done and in short order so it's not crazy long. The other one, the Challenger jet down in Florida, I'm very curious to get your take on my take on this. I'm going to give you that information and let you hear some tapes and give you my analysis of what I think. I am entitled to an opinion and a guess. I could be wrong. It's entirely possible. It happened one time before, back in 1974, I do recall. But I think you're going to like what you see on this, and I'm curious to get your opinion on the crash of the Challenger and what caused it. I've got that video interview with the guy that went running towards the scene. All that is coming up. Before we do that, here's a little lighthearted segment. There's a couple, David and Melissa Engstrom, that could sure use our help right now. David is in the hospital with a rare form of cancer and fighting for his life out on the West Coast. You might remember this couple from the very famous multi-million view Their Wedding video, probably one of the funniest videos I have ever seen. And I'm going to play that for you now. Melissa has the exact same problem that I do. I cannot stop laughing if I'm in a confined area and I can't laugh. I can't stop laughing. Melissa's got the exact same problem. This video is hilarious. This is them on their wedding day.
Andrew placed the ring on Melissa's hand and repeat after me. I, Andrew Paul Daniel Engstrom.
I'm not putting it on the wrong way.
There we go. I, Andrew Paul Daniel Engstrom.
I, Andrew Paul Daniel Engstrom.
Do take Melissa Renee Warren.
Do take Melissa Renee Warren.
To be my lawfully wedded wife.
To be my lawfully and pancakey. I've been scared of this all my life. Just give her a second.
It's totally amazing. I want you to go to Melissa's Facebook page. I'm going to put it up here. If you have a chance to leave them a word of encouragement, a prayer, something of some kind of support, you don't have to be a friend of hers to leave a positive comment and support. If you go to her page and take a look, you can scroll back and read and see the battle that they are in. David is in the hospital right now, and he's going to be there for a while. They've got 3 kids, a fantastic family. They're friends of mine, and I would like to throw them every bit of our support that we possibly could. You know, in contrast to that, we do have haters. I battle this hater thing all the time. I can't see how people can live their lives in hate. They've got nothing medically wrong with them, but they indulge in this sickness of hate. Here's that text message that really, I get several of these per week, and I'm going to put this one up on the screen. I'm not going to tell you who this is from, although I know exactly who it was from. But it's just amazing that's what it's come down to in this YouTube world. These people have no relationships with their parents or their children. They live in a life of hate, totally opposite of the angstroms, totally opposite of the way we do things. And it's amazing that people can even exist like that, but it is what it is. Let's go on and take a look at the data. I'm going to show you January. Here's your data for January, and here's February. I'm going to make a correction here. In February, this accident was originally reported to have happened at 1 a.m. I'm going to move this off of this. It actually happened at 1 p.m. the day before. So now our February sheet looks like this. And now let's go back and look at January. January sheet formerly looked like this, but I have to add this one in at the end of January because I found out, and I think I'll go out on a limb here. I think it's pretty reliable that this actually happened at 1 p.m. on the very last day of January. Doesn't really matter, but those are our numbers so far for January, February. Month to year to date wise, this puts us in really good position. Fatal accident, general aviation fatal accident rate for the United States. I want this to come down. I'm working very hard to publish these, say what went wrong, and I've got a whole bunch more information to talk about as we get to that in just a moment. Got a little bit of housekeeping stuff to do here. I'm talking about schedule real quick, but I'm going to be out at NATA, that's in Nebraska, out in Kearney. I got kind of called at the carpet for the way I pronounced it. Kearney, someplace in Nebraska. A good bunch of people will be out there on the 19th and 20th of February, the evening before, and I'll be the lunch speaker for the day of the afternoon luncheon in their awards program. Out in Nebraska. Should be a lot of fun. I've got to know quite a few of the ag people, and a lot have reached out concerning Part 137, preventable ag accidents. I am not an ag guy or a crop duster, but I am interested in talking to these people and seeing if there's not anything that we could do in groupthink to help out the fatal accident. You know, all these crop dusters, they don't need an airspeed indicator to fly. They're totally fine flying. They can fly completely blind better than any of us ever thought about it. But they do hit wires, they hit trees, they hit obstacles, they hit things, which causes most of their fatals. There is very rarely ever a stall spin ag accident. It's very rare, at least in the act of spraying. These people know what they're doing. And then let's talk about up in Columbus, Ohio, March 6th. Here's the flyer for it. March 6th, the evening. It's going to be an evening function that starts sometime in the evening, I think 6:30, and then goes to the dinner function and stuff like that. I'll be there probably with a banjo, and you can RSVP. You can check in and buy a ticket to go to this. If you buy a ticket, I think they're $20, but all that money goes directly to them. I don't charge any money for attending or anything like that, and happy to do it. If you'd like me to come and speak to your group or whatever, I try to do at least one or maybe sometimes 2 of these per month. And then on the 16th of March, we'll be down in Crestview, Florida, KCEW at the EAA chapter. Here's the flyer for that. If you want to go, please RSVP via this link here and let them know. It's a pancake breakfast on that Saturday morning. I'll be there with probably a different banjo, and probably things will get totally out of control, but that's the way we like to do it, and that's going to happen on March 16th. You know, I put out that thing for hats there towards Christmas time, and I totally cleaned me out of hats. I do have a little bit replenished supply here. If you paid me for a hat and I owe you a hat, please email me. I think I'm caught up on hats. The very last of the hat shipment and the hat catch-up just went out on Friday last week as the last of my supplies came in and I was able to get the last of those hats out. If you haven't got your hat in the next few days, then please let me know. And I want to know. I don't want to owe you anything. And if you paid for a hat and want one and deserve a hat, let me know and I'll work on that. I appreciate that a lot. You know, last week's segment had that video interview with Trent Palmer concerning his case. Very important. A lot of progress has gone on in that case. I got a lot of people that reached out to me concerning this FSDO guy, now retired. His name is Don Morgan from the Reno FSDO. I want a lot more people to reach out to me concerning Don Morgan. If you have a Don Morgan story, I'd like to know about it. I want to build more information and background on what made Don Morgan function as a human being. All the things that I've heard, this FSDO guy, no wonder Trent ended up. FSDO, FAA is not supposed to be these kind of people and make these kind of problems for nothing. Don Morgan, from everything I have been told, I'd like to know more about Don Morgan, even though he's retired. Did you know that Don Morgan's home and the site of this place where Trent flew his airplane by, they were only 8 miles apart? And did you know that Don Morgan personally knew the homeowner? There's an interesting connection there. I don't like any of it, but we're fixing to see what's going to happen here, and I'm going to do a little bit more investigative work on that relationship and all that stuff, and I'm going to try to collect up some Don Morgan stories to show you what kind of an FAA employee Don Morgan was, according to your input. So the event happens, 2 years goes by, you had to hire an attorney, had jumped through all these hoops, 2 years, it ends up in a trial. At the trial, did you get a jury?
No. This was all through a Zoom hearing. Yeah, you aren't given a jury or anything. It's just basically the FAA and their attorney versus me, and the NTSB is the administrative law judge.
The NTSB becomes the judge. There's only one person who gets to make this decision. And did this judge defer to the request of the FAA?
Yeah. He did. And I'm assuming you saw at least the Michis group's appeal on my behalf, because that was their big issue with this, is that the NTSB in this situation is supposed to be an independent body that checks the FAA and hears it from a unbiased standpoint. And so the fact that they just deferred to the FAA is unconstitutional at its basic level.
Yes. So you have a FSDO employee, Mr. Morgan, who files this complaint. They get an FAA attorney. They take you through 2 years of hoops to go before an NTSB judge. You spent 6 days in trial to prove something that you didn't have the burden of proving in the first place. And then they simply say, we're going to defer to the judgment of the FAA. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, me as well.
And then after that, you took that decision and you appealed it to the you appealed it up to the next level. When you appeal after you lost your trial, you appealed it up one level. Who hears that appeal?
The NTSB. Yeah.
So now you got the good old boys saying, yes, our good old boys did okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's tricky, and I mean it's pretty well known that the guys at the NTSB and the guys at the FAA, I mean they're buddies, they're one and the same. It's a difficult system, and from a pilot's perspective, there's no hope.
You know, speaking of FAA, we got this 172 that crashed here in Atlanta in December. I talked about this last week. Still no information, no nothing. This had for sure an FAA examiner, and I think it had an actual FSDO guy. I think there was 2 FAA people on board this Cessna 172 crash. Day VFR, perfect weather conditions. Neither guy got hurt, but I want to know how come this never made it in the FAA accident mill. NTSB doesn't have any word on it. The whole thing, ASN has a report on it, but FAA and NTSB, there is no accident information or acknowledgement of this. Is it because there was a designated pilot examiner on board? And was there a FSDO guy on board? I think there was. Here's the screenshot of the guy I think was on this airplane, the DPE that was on this airplane. I would like to know what the true story is on this accident here in Atlanta from December of 2023. So we've already talked about a little bit about the January and February data. February is looking really good. Really, in February, we've only got the two, and we talked about both of those last week. And that's the Rebuild Rescue Twin up in Ohio, and then the Bonanza down in Florida. To my knowledge, there's not been another GA accident. Both the jet crashes and both the helicopter crashes are all 135. They don't fit in our category. And we're really at 2 general aviation, which is really good. It's not good, but it's really good for us, our general aviation fatal accident rate. So it's on the way down, and I like that. I think that we're doing better, and I hope to keep this trend alive.
Our top story we're following this afternoon, 2 people walked away from a plane that went down in someone's Spanish Fork front yard, if you can believe it. Now, here's a live look of that plane right now. It went down around 2:30 this afternoon, but you're seeing still clearly there in the front yard. Spanish Fork City says 2 people were in the plane heading towards the airport in Spanish Fork when the engine reportedly failed. The pilot told emergency responders he heard the engine sputter while in the air. He says he was near a power substation and close to I-15. So he was trying to be safe. He tried to land in an open field. The plane reportedly skidded through the field after clipping a power line and eventually came to a rest right in front of this home.
Now I'm going to talk about this 989 Sierra Romeo Spanish Fork. It's looks like a Saratoga Piper product. Made a takeoff from Spanish Fork yesterday afternoon, went out and flew around, went out to the northwest, flew around. Came back in and had an engine problem. Day VFR had an engine problem and failed to make it to the airport. And if you look at this is amazing. This pilot elected to go gear down towards a road and towards a house. Look at the real estate that he had around here. If he would have gone gear up in any one of these fields, no damage, very little damage. You could probably reuse the airplane again. He elected gear down and went through a road towards a house, almost hit a house. I'm telling you, you people that fly around these things and have not practiced your power off situations, to be a commercial pilot, you got to do the famous power off 180. Well, who cares? Everybody can do a power off 180. Let's put you out 4 miles away from the airport and give you a power off and make you make it to the airport and plan your descent and plan to touch down someplace on the runway. If you're over the top of the field with energy, you should be able to make it. If not, select a suitable off-field airport. Open the door, step out, call me. You can go gear up in any field. I recommend gear up in a farmer's field. You won't hurt the airplane. You open the door and step out. These guys in Spanish Fork, I don't know who they are yet, but I'm fixed to find out. And they made a wrong decision, and I'm very sorry. I don't like it. I don't like any portion of this Piper handling in Spanish Fork. They came very close to killing themselves. With all this real estate around here, I just don't like it. All right, we're finally getting down to the nitty-gritty here. 823 Kilo Delta, the Challenger down 6 in Florida, landed on the interstate. I'm going to play the interview of the guy. I reached out to him. He declined the opportunity to interview and sell his interview to NBC and some of these other people. I'm going to play that interview next. This guy was driving on I-75 South. This airplane came directly over his head, almost hit him. His name's Kyle, a great guy. Here's Kyle's interview. Well, here's a rare opportunity. Kyle Cavalier's on the line. I'm about to bring him onto the Zoom call. Kyle's the guy minding his own business in Florida when the jet just about landed on top of him, and he posted a little bit of video. He was first to the scene. I'm going to show that, but I'm going to bring Kyle on here. Citizen Samaritan, and Kyle jumped out of his car and ran to give aid immediately and do the very best that he could. And I'm going to bring Kyle on here because it's a very unique jet crash, and I'm going to talk quite a bit about this particular jet crash and why both engines quit. So Kyle, thanks for jumping in here, brother. Glad to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate it. And I know you told me you turned down Lester Holt and a whole bunch of other people in NBC, which is really something. But you got a great story here, and I appreciate you taking the time. Put me back in place here. You were driving down the road southbound on the interstate, and you saw this thing kind of come over?
Yes, sir. I caught it out of the corner of my eye. Something just caught my attention, and when I looked over, I saw a really low-flying aircraft. Obviously, we're close to the airport, so you see low flying planes every once in a while. This one was just abnormally low. You knew something wasn't right. And I watched it for a couple of seconds, realizing that it was not going to get any higher, that it was actually coming down.
Right.
And I just started hitting the brakes and watching traffic, making sure we didn't have any other accidents. But there's nothing
And
you can do.
this thing hit that white car, and it only had one guy in it. But that white car was actually how many cars ahead of you?
It was the second car ahead of me. It was about 40 or 50 feet in front of me.
And that's the one that got hit by the plane. So, I mean, you were right there in the middle of it. And then as soon as the jet hit, did you go to the jet or did you go to the guy in the white car first?
I went to the guy in the white car first. I passed the jet and got myself to a safe place, safe distance away, and I happened to be close enough to that guy in the white truck that I was able to stop and make sure that he was okay and render assistance.
And he looked to you. He looked to be okay. Is that right?
Yeah, he looked okay. I asked him if he needed any help. He declined any kind of assistance. So I
Amazing.
turned my attention elsewhere.
Yeah. And then you turned your attention towards the jet, which was on fire. And tell me about your camera. You went to take a picture and you made a mistake. What was the mistake that you made?
My mistake was actually that the camera was still on video from the first clip that I took. So when I hit the button, the shutter button to take the picture, it started recording. And as I was getting ready to flip it back over to the camera, in the screen, I saw the survivors running away from the plane. So at that point, I just stopped what I was doing and started running towards them to make sure that they didn't need any assistance.
Yeah. Well, you get a purple star for that one. You ran towards the flame. It's a jet just crashed and it's going to be exploding and it's hot and it's dangerous. And you ran towards danger to try to help other people. And I think that's really good. The fact that you accidentally happened to catch it on video is even better here. Let's play that clip right here. I'm going to drop that in right here so people can see what we're talking about.
Is there anybody else in there?
Yes, our pilots.
Are they alive?
We haven't, I don't know.
I need to get more
I don't have my phone.
So that was pretty good, Kyle, and we got that clearly shown here. 3 survived, and the very last question that you asked was, "Is there anybody else?" And they said yes, the pilots, and obviously the pilots did not make it out of there. Let me ask you about your film company. You own a company named KK Films. What do you like to do? It's ironic that you're a video guy, a film guy. If anybody knew how to operate a camera, it ought to be Kyle. And yet you made a mistake trying to snap a picture, and you got this video going here. What kind of company is KK Films, and what do you guys like to do?
KK Films is an independent film company. We do a lot of different film aspects. We'll do feature films, series, documentaries, or even commercials on the rare occasion. A couple of our sponsors that we've dealt with, we've done a couple of B-reels and commercials for them, some footage that they're going to use in their commercials and such. So we offer all kinds of full service film industry standard.
Good. Well, you're open for business. Anybody that needs film stuff, really nationwide, due to the fact that you can upload and transfer files from anywhere. You guys can really create, shoot, and edit product for anybody. And anybody that needs to get a hold of Kyle, I'm going to put his contact information up on here. But I've taken a look at his website. Obviously, some very talented video people at KK Films. I just think it's ironic that you almost got hit by this jet and you were the first one there trying to help. Really, there's 4 survivors in this thing, and you were the first guy there to try to help all 4.
Yep, exactly. Right place, right time, wrong place, wrong time, depending on how you look at it. But either way, it could have been so much worse than what it was. And I do want to give recognition to the pilots in this incredible job they did of getting that plane to the ground as safely as they could in the safest place that they could.
I agree. Kudos to the pilot. There's been a lot of speculation out there that they ran it out of gas. They did not run this airplane out of gas. And I'm going to tell you in this video here in just a few minutes exactly what happened, because I've already done the research on this. And Kyle, you're not going to believe it, but when you watch this segment and watch to see what actually happened to this jet, you're not going to believe it. But it was not the pilot's fault. They didn't hit birds and they didn't run it out of gas. And they did put that jet in a postage stamp piece of property there along the highway with the minimal damage. And they said they were not going to make it to the airport, but I'm about to explain why both jet engines flamed out on this approach.
Okay, Challenger Hopperjet 823, lost both engines, emergency. I'm making an emergency landing.
Whoever's got the emergency clear to land runway 23, is that Hopperjet 823?
We're clear to land, but we're not going to make the runway. We've lost both engines.
Well, I can tell you that that is 100% accurate. The place that they put that plane down was the safest they could do. Right on the other side of that wall was a subdivision with hundreds of houses. And as far as any speculation of them running the plane out of fuel, I can personally put that to rest, as I've visibly witnessed the fuel running out of the plane. So
yes,
there was plenty of fuel.
There's plenty of fuel. The fuel was running out, and it was too hot of a fire, too big of a fire for too long. It was burning jet fuel on fire. They did not run out of gas, which is the number one thing I've heard so far on this thing. But anyway, Kyle, I appreciate you, brother. Stay in touch. Maybe we can do some fun stuff together in the future. I'm in South Florida all the time, and if nothing else, dinner's on me. I appreciate it, and I hope I can steer you some really good business for KK Films.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So kudos to Kyle for being the Samaritan running towards the airplane trying to help. Kyle provided me uncut, unedited, raw video that I'm showing you right now. This is the scene, and this is his original footage from his cell phone. He thought he was taking a picture. Actually, he was taking a video and didn't know it at the time, which is good. We were able to capture a little bit of audio and a little bit of video to show you the chaos. Now, the question is, what happened? Well, everybody has speculated they hit birds. I don't think so. They've also speculated that they ran this thing out of gas. I don't think so. Here's what happened. This company, Hopperjet, just like all the 135s, are tight on money. They're cheap. They're trying to get everything done for the least amount of money and save a penny every place that they can. This jet got dispatched up to OSU, which is state airport up in OSU. It flew up there. It landed. Now, if you look at this chart here, what do you have to have in order to avoid the handling fee at OSU? Well, according to your wing size and length and width of your airplane, you have to purchase X amount of gallons in order to avoid the handling fee. Notice 350 gallons is the minimum required purchase to avoid the handling fee at this airport. The dispatcher gave them the direct orders, order 350 negative PRIST. And I'm going to tell you exactly how I know that. What is PRIST? PRIST is the anti-icing agent that goes inside the jet fuel that keeps it from freezing at extreme high altitudes and high temperatures. Let's listen to the Unicom frequency that I caught. This is the person on the ground at State Airport reading back the instructions from the crew as they taxied in. What would you like? They wanted 350 gallons of negative PRIST, and he reads that back. The pilot's instructions are a little bit hard to hear, but the readback is perfectly clear. He says 350 negative.
823 Kilo Delta, go ahead. Picking up two passengers, 15 minutes. Do you need any fuel or anything? 350 negative, copy.
350 negative means they added 350 gallons of gas. They took off and they climbed straight to 40,000 feet. Here's the track of it. They're at 40,000 feet. It's in the neighborhood of minus 50 Celsius for 2 hours up there. jet fuel turns to jello. We've had this problem before. You have to have Prist in your jet fuel. Their jet fuel, I believe, this is my guess, I'm entitled to speculate. I think this jet fuel, just like the British Airways airplane, stayed aloft too long, too cold. There is some heat exchangers, some fuel oil heat exchangers that typically work. However, at idle power, the bleed air that keeps this stuff working does not produce enough heat to warm the fuel and to get that fuel to flow. This is like trying to pump jello through your fuel lines, and the fuel is all the same temperature. When it reaches a sludge value in each tank, each engine is going to flame out almost identically. To me, I've seen this before. I've seen this phenomena. I have been around this whole Prist thing for extended operations. You know, the airliners, they have a fuel air temperature time chart to show you how long you can stay at altitude before your fuel starts to freeze. That's on the dispatch paperwork. I think this dispatcher sent them up there thinking that the total price of their stay was going to be less if they skipped the Prist. The truth is, Prist could have been included for the exact same fee. Here's the phone call with OSU Airport.
Ohio State University Airport, how can I help you?
Just calling for some prices on Jet A.
All right, for a Jet A, it's going to be $6.36 per gallon.
We'll need Prist. How much is it with Prist?
Same with Prist.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yep, sure thing.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So a real shame here. I think this is a bean counter error. I think they bit off on trying to save a buck here. They took 350 gallons, negative Prist, 350 negative is all that happened. They got down to Florida at idle power. This sludge, gel, jet fuel, frozen jet fuel in the bottom of this tank. They're getting low on fuel, and everything that's in the bottom of that tank is jello. I think that's all that happened. There is another possibility having to do with the cutoff and the gates on the throttles. I'm not really buying that. I suppose it is possible, but my guess right now is cold fuel. And once I heard 350 negative, that's all I need to hear. I think this one is case closed. I did this information in 24 hours from my home desk, and that's all I've got to say on it. We'll see. I could be wrong, but that's my best guess so far. You can let me know in the comments what you think, but I think 350 negative was the kiss of death.
350 negative, copy.
Now I've got to talk just a little bit real quickly about the two jet crashes. 900 Victor Alpha out in Colorado. I don't know what happened, but it was a 135. Doesn't really fit in our category. Two people on board, a pilot and a co-pilot on board that airplane. No idea yet. A very unusual takeoff, departure, descent, and flight path. I don't have a clue. Then the Challenger jet in Florida, we've already talked about that, was also 135, not a Part 91 operation. Then the two helicopter crashes, one military and one 135, both of them within a few days of each other. The military one had 5 on board. The other Airbus helicopter had 6 on board, so a total of 11. This whole thing, I'm going to kind of get on my high horse here on this thing. You guys choosing to go out in the terrain and fly at night, ice, IMC, in the terrain, why?
But extreme bad weather, bad terrain, night conditions.
The one helicopter crash happened at 1 a.m. and I've got the graphic for it here. Here's where it ended up at. And here's the other one with the 6 on board en route to the Super Bowl. Look at the path that they flew here. The whole thing makes no sense. Both helicopters do not fit in the General Aviation Part 91, but it has to do with decision making. This helicopter crash, I'm gonna play the excerpt from the Marine guy that's talking about our justification for being out there in the first place. Here's the 5 men that died on this airplane. I'm going to show you their pictures. Our deepest respects to those 5 Marines that lost their lives. What a tragic and senseless waste. Were they following orders? Yes, most likely they were following direct orders. I want to know who gave those orders to take that helicopter and launch in those conditions in peacetime in America. For what? Why did we have to do that? Yes, fight like you train, train like you fly it. I've heard all those arguments. This one makes no sense. We don't have to be doing this, and we can't get those 5 Marines back. We can't get that helicopter back. The whole thing makes no sense to me. Let's listen to this news excerpt.
But extreme bad weather, bad terrain, night conditions.
You know, every now and then somebody asks me about my credentials. I don't talk a lot about it, and I'm not one to brag about credentials. If you notice, I don't think I've ever mentioned my credentials, but I've had several people ask here in the last week. I'll tell you right now, I'll put my credentials up on the screen, but I've got about 16,000 hours. I'm a retired airline captain. I am a CFI, II, MEI, IGI, advanced ground instructor, and a Gold SEAL instructor. I've got these type ratings. I've got a first class medical, and for single engine aircraft, I'm an ATP for single engine aircraft. I have been a flight instructor for 40 years. I stay active in single and multi-engine instruction, tailwheel, warbird, turboprops, and jets. This is the environment that I operate in and that I live in and I know the most. I know a lot about turboprops and jets and jet operation and things like that. I am not much on bean counters and some of those other kind of things. I'm not very political, but airplanes I do know a fair bit about, and these are my credentials. You can see them right here on the screen. I've got a first class medical and I am good to go. Those are my credentials. I appreciate your support. I produce this video content for free. Even the music, this music that you're about to hear on here, this is my music that I put on here with my guitar to keep this content ad-free wherever I can. If you have a chance to support me, Zelle, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. Those do a great deal in going towards my expenses and on the road, tacos, gas, and visits to these other places, and I appreciate that. I suggest $1, maybe $2 if you really like me, and that's totally fine. I'm able to get several $100s sometimes off of a video, which helps a lot towards a rent car or travel or food on the road and things like that. Makes it so that not all my costs are out-of-pocket expenses, and I appreciate that. Now, it's down to Remnant Fellowship Church, November 6 Bravo Kilo. I know you just saw the interview with Michael Shamblin. I did too. Wow. All I can tell you is Michael has come out of the closet and he wants to tell you he doesn't even consider himself a Shamblin anymore. He is Michael S. Black, and he wants to refer to his mother, not his mother. He refers to her as Gwen. So I hope that you'll appreciate that interview as much as I did. This has to do with the crash, 66 Bravo Kilo, that had Joe Lara on board. Joe was the former guy that played Tarzan in the movies, and he married Gwen. Gwen divorced her husband and married Joe Lara. Joe was not much of a pilot, but they bought that jet. They had all kinds of toys and all kinds of money from the Way Down workshop. Now, the situation here is that I ended up becoming friends with Natasha years ago after this thing happened, and I helped her. I went to California. I did a lot of stuff, and Natasha and I have always differed in the view of what actually happened. Joe Lara's sister committed suicide. His niece attempted suicide. Joe came from a very troubled family, and Joe had been stripped of absolutely everything. I'm going to let you listen to a little bit of this conversation. I'm trying to explain to Natasha the spatial disorientation flight path described by the NTSB does not fit this profile. Spatial disorientation for a pilot is a turning, gradual descent, a spiral, a graveyard spiral into the dirt. It happens. This airplane was at 3,000 feet, and it was 1,300 overcast. Visibility 10 and 1,300 overcast. They could have come out of the bottom of the overcast with visibility 10, no problem. From 3,000 MSL, this airplane went almost purely vertical in an instant. It came down at some horrendous rate of descent. I can't remember the number right now, but it seems like it was around 80,000 feet per minute. Here's a couple of my conversations with Natasha as I try to explain to her.
I have not seen Joe as a person. He was a shell of a man, shell of a person. He wasn't even present. He didn't even look like he was physically present.
And Joe was a shell of a man. He was trapped, and his only way out was his only way out. He took that yoke and pushed it 70 pounds worth full forward and held it there. He came out of the clouds looking at the water, and he never flinched all the way in.
You think there was a chance to pull back up when you got out of the clouds?
It wouldn't have worked, but any pilot would have tried. When you come out of the clouds, any pilot would see and make a correction. There was no correction.
Would it it show on? But it didn't show on the radar, so you don't know if they tried to make that correction.
I found the fisherman who watched it go in. There was no correction in the flight path. It didn't flinch at all. It was wings level straight into the water. It never flinched. How do you explain that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much the fisherman saw. It was a split second, but I don't know. And it went in the water nose down, right?
Very nose down. Yeah, it hit the water at 400 knots. Full power and nose down.
I don't know. Why didn't the NTSB figure that out?
Now, Natasha doesn't want to hear any part of it because she is afraid of what it will do to the memory of her daughter, of her dad. Was her dad a murder-suicide guy or not? I don't know. Kind of seems to me like he was. There's been a lot of suicides lately and a lot of mass shootings and a lot of mass everything. Joe Lara lost his girlfriend. He lost his daughter. He lost his mother. He lost his income. He lost his manliness. He lost everything. And he had to live with Gwen. I can tell you, if I had to live with Gwen under those circumstances, I'd want to shoot myself. The whole thing, this was Joe's final farewell, and Joe was so angry over this, he did this. Now, in the course of talking to Natasha, who is a pilot, who has taken instrument training, I asked her the all-important question. Natasha, you've been in an airplane. You've had spatial disorientation in an airplane. When have you ever been in an airplane and ended up nose down, nose to the earth because of spatial disorientation? I want you to listen to that conversation real quick here and listen to Natasha's answer to that all-important question. If you've had spatial disorientation before, when have you ever, or when would you ever end up purely vertical to the earth? Tell me about the one time where you had the Cessna, where you pushed the yoke and held it, and you put the Cessna vertical to the earth and you held it there. Well, tell me about that time.
Never. And I also, do you know that I finished my qualifications for instrument training, all of them? I just didn't take the test.
Yes, I remember that. I want to know about the time in your 200 hours you must have taken a Cessna and pointed the nose straight at the earth and held it there. You did that, right?
No, never.
Why would you never do that?
Well, I never had that opportunity come up, but I did do under hoods training in an IFR,
right,
and the regular stuff, and I was bewildered at how, even though I wasn't in a cloud, how turning the plane, the sun shining into the cockpit, made it feel like a disco ball in there, and that was really messing up my head, because all my instructor kept saying is, no matter what, you have to look at the attitude indicator as the mother of them all.
Yes.
Right?
So during all that time when the sun was making it look like a disco ball and you were disoriented, tell me about the time during training where you got disoriented and the airplane ended up with the nose pointed directly at the earth, purely vertical. Tell me about that.
No, it never happened.
So that's all I got to say on that. This was not spatial disorientation. This was murder-suicide on the part of Joe. I think Joe took out Brandon. I think that's all that happened here, and he wanted an ending to all of this, and he got it. I'm very sorry. It's horrific for everybody involved, but that is, in my opinion, and I am entitled to an opinion, I think that's all that happened. I've got a video coming out called Straight Ahead. It's coming out. I know I promised it last week. I still don't have it done here, but I am working on it. The theme for this year is Straight Ahead, and I've got a video and a special story to illustrate that. The whole concept of going straight ahead isn't just about after takeoff. Yes, you could turn a little left, a little right if you absolutely need to, but the concept of going straight ahead, don't be deterred by the naysayers. Don't be deterred by the haters. Keep your chin up. Keep on going. Go straight ahead. Get your shoulders up and keep on going. Go straight ahead is what I've got to say here. For my tiny little itty-bitty fledgling YouTube channel, Dan Greider, Probable Cause.